When Barack Obama took the stage that evening, most people expected him to give his usual thoughtful analysis of politics and the state of the nation. The event had been billed as a conversation about leadership, integrity, and lessons from the past, not an arena for personal attacks. The atmosphere was calm, almost academic, with the audience leaning in as Obama began to talk about what he believed separated effective leaders from those who simply sought attention. Then, almost casually, he shifted gears and offered a story that immediately made the room feel different. He described a meeting that had taken place years earlier in the White House, one that wasn't widely publicized but it carried weight among those present. Obama recalled how Donald Trump had been adamant about a particular issue, speaking with certainty and urgency about what needed to be done. According to Obama, Trump had insisted in private that a course of action was not only necessary but unavoidable, yet only days later, in front of cameras and crowds, he had taken the exact opposite stance. Obama didn't embellish or dramatize the tale, he simply laid it out in the same measured tone he always used. That was what made it so powerful. The revelation caught the panel off guard. Other speakers looked at one another, eyebrows raised, as if silently asking whether they had just heard correctly. The audience, too, seemed frozen, hanging on every word as Obama described the disconnect between what Trump had promised behind closed doors and what he later told the American public. He framed it not as a personal attack, but as an example of how the performance of leadership could sometimes diverge drastically from the responsibility of leadership. It was his way of underlining the difference between authenticity and showmanship. Viewers at home didn't miss the significance of what had just been said. For years, Trump's supporters and critics alike had debated whether his rhetoric matched his private convictions. Obama had pulled back the curtain, if only slightly, and suggested that there had been a deliberate gap between private reality and public messaging. He didn't yell or use charged language. He simply spoke as if it were common knowledge, something he had observed firsthand. That calm delivery lent the story a credibility that a more heated tone might not have conveyed. What made the moment more shocking was how Obama framed it in terms of consequences. He suggested that decisions made in those rooms weren't just about optics, they had a direct effect on ordinary people's lives. He didn't have to go into great detail about the issue at hand. The weight of the story was in the principle. It revealed, leaders could say one thing to the cameras while quietly admitting something very different when the microphones were off. For the audience, this raised a simple but uncomfortable question. If that was true in one case, how many times had it happened elsewhere? Some in the crowd shifted uneasily in their seats, recognizing that the example went beyond partisan politics. It wasn't just about Trump as an individual, though his name was central to the account. It was about the very idea of trust in leaders and the fragile bond between public statements and private intentions. Obama's voice never wavered, and he didn't press the point further than necessary. He seemed to understand that the story spoke for itself. The moderators, sensing the gravity of the revelation, let the silence linger before moving on. The cameras panned across the audience, catching expressions of surprise, disbelief, and in some cases, quiet nods of agreement. It was the kind of moment that felt unplanned yet unforgettable, the kind of thing that would replay endlessly once the broadcast was clipped and shared. Obama had not set out to make headlines, but by choosing to bring that memory into the open, he had revealed a side of Trump's decision-making that many suspected, but few had heard confirmed in such a direct, matter-of-fact way. Donald Trump had never been known for staying quiet when he felt someone had misrepresented him, and this moment proved no exception. The cameras caught his reaction almost instantly, as if the producers knew the story would stir him up. He was watching from another location, tuned into the same broadcast, and when Barack Obama delivered that revelation, Trump's expression shifted in real time. His usual air of confidence was still there, but layered on top of it was a visible flash of irritation. His jaw tightened, his eyes narrowed, and within seconds it was clear that he would not let the comment pass without a response. Before the panel discussion even wrapped up, Trump had arranged to make himself part of the broadcast. News anchors suddenly cut to a split screen, and there he was, ready to fire back. The interruption itself spoke volumes. He could have waited to issue a statement later, as many politicians would do. Instead, he wanted his rebuttal immediate, live, and unfiltered. Trump's voice carried the same sharp edge that had become his trademark, and his first words were aimed directly at Obama. He accused him of twisting events, of deliberately trying to rewrite history, and of doing so with the calculated calmness that frustrated him even more than the content of the story itself. What stood out was how quickly his composure unraveled. Normally, Trump liked to project strength, to appear as though he was always in control of the situation, but in that moment, he spoke faster than usual, his tone rising as he insisted that Obama was misleading the public. He pointed to his own record, rattled off achievements, and tried to frame the revelation as nothing more than a petty swipe from a former president who never fully accepted him. His words carried energy, but his body language betrayed agitation. He leaned forward, jabbed the air with his finger, and often cut off the anchors who tried to guide the discussion. Asterisk for viewers. The contrast was unmistakable. Obama had told his story with composure, never raising his voice. Trump, by comparison, was visibly rattled, and his attempt to discredit the account came across as defensive rather than commanding. Every time he interrupted a commentator, every time he repeated a phrase for emphasis, the audience could sense the urgency behind his anger. It wasn't just a routine, it was a reaction born from being caught off guard. Asterisk in living rooms across the country. People debated whether his response was justified or whether it revealed more than he intended. For supporters, his outburst was a sign of passion, proof that he refused to sit back and let his rivals take shots at him without fighting back. For critics, it was evidence that Obama's revelation had struck a nerve, shaking his usual ability to spin a narrative in his favor. Either way, the moment left no one indifferent. Asterisk what made the scene so striking was that it wasn't rehearsed. Trump was known for dominating rallies, for speaking directly to crowds that already supported him, where the energy was always on his side. But here, on a broadcast where he hadn't been scheduled to appear, he was thrown into a reactive role. Instead of setting the tone, he was responding to someone else's framing. That reversal didn't suit him. His words carried force, but his expressions and interruptions suggested a man struggling to regain control of the narrative. Asterisk social media platforms lit up within minutes. Clips of him cutting off the anchors circulated, often contrasted with Obama's calm delivery from earlier in the program. Memes, commentary, and endless threads debated what the clash revealed about both men. Was it simply another example of Trump's fiery style? Or had Obama exposed a vulnerability that Trump couldn't easily cover? The fact that the reaction itself became the story showed just how much it resonated with the public. Asterisk in the days that followed, the moment continued to dominate headlines, but the live reaction remained the centerpiece. It wasn't just about what Obama had revealed, it was about how Trump responded, the speed of his anger, the visible frustration, the refusal to let the issue pass without confrontation, all combined into a scene that viewers would remember long after the broadcast ended. It was one of those rare instances where the reaction spoke louder than the accusation itself, and Trump's outburst ensured that the exchange would be replayed again and again. Asterisk. As the cameras rolled, the split screen captured a striking visual that told its own story without a single word being spoken. On one side, Barack Obama sat upright, relaxed but deliberate, explaining his point with a steady tone and calm gestures. On the other side, Donald Trump leaned forward, his face set with frustration, his hands moving quickly as he jabbed the air for emphasis. The difference was immediate and undeniable. Obama never raised his voice, yet he commanded attention through measured delivery. Trump, meanwhile, was animated and fiery, determined to counter what had just been said, but revealing through his tone how deeply the moment had unsettled him. Asterisk the contrast was not lost on the audience. For years, both men had represented very different approaches to leadership, but seeing them side by side on live television magnified those differences in real time. Obama's strength came from composure. He had a way of lowering his voice, slowing his cadence, and letting silence do some of the work for him. He didn't try to dominate the space with sheer force. He let the weight of his words carry the moment. Trump, in stark contrast, relied on energy and confrontation. He thrived on intensity, volume, and repetition. He often used quick phrases and direct language that were hard to ignore, but in this instance, the approach seemed to work against him. Asterisk every time Trump cut in with sharp rebuttals, Obama simply waited, then continued without acknowledging the interruptions. That dynamic created a scene where one man seemed unfazed, while the other appeared unsettled. Commentators watching the exchange pointed out how unusual it was to see Trump in such a defensive posture. He was used to controlling the narrative, steering conversations toward his strengths, and making sure the spotlight stayed fixed on him. Here, though he was responding to Obama's framing, not setting his own, and the struggle to wrestle back control showed on his face. Asterisk for viewers at home. The side-by-side images carried as much impact as the words themselves. Some saw Obama's calmness as a display of confidence, while others felt Trump's fiery energy showed that he was unwilling to back down. But to many, the juxtaposition painted a larger picture. Two former presidents embodying opposite versions of leadership. Under pressure, one seemed steady, the other agitated. One delivered his point like a professor guiding a lesson, while the other reacted like a fighter in the middle of a heated match. Asterisk. The split-screen moment also reminded people of earlier public encounters. Between the two men, their rivalry had always been more than political, it was personal. Stretching back years to Trump's criticisms of Obama and Obama's pointed remarks at Trump during public events. That history lingered in the background of the broadcast, making the contrast even sharper. It wasn't just two leaders disagreeing, it was the continuation of a long-running clash of personalities. Asterisk. As the exchange went on, anchors attempted to mediate, but the difference in styles became the dominant takeaway. Obama's remarks never shifted in tone, even when Trump was visibly upset he didn't match Trump's volume or try to outpace him. Instead, he stuck to his calm delivery, which only highlighted how differently they were handling the same situation. The more composed Obama appeared, the more it seemed to amplify Trump's agitation, as if each calm sentence added fuel to Trump's urgency to respond. Asterisk. In the hours after the broadcast, analysts replayed clips to examine the body language of both men. Specialists pointed out how Obama's steady posture projected confidence, while Trump's restless movements suggested impatience. Comment sections overflowed with debates, some praising Trump's refusal to stay silent, and others arguing that Obama's calm presence had made him look stronger. What was clear to everyone, though, was that the contrast between the two had become the defining image of the night. Asterisk. It wasn't just about the revelation anymore. It was about how each man handled the pressure of live television when confronted with a moment that could not be planned. Obama leaned into composure, Trump leaned into confrontation, and the result was a visual and verbal clash that seemed to capture the essence of their differences in a single broadcast. Asterisk. In the aftermath of the exchange, the impact rippled far beyond the live broadcast itself. What Barack Obama had revealed carried weight, but it was Donald Trump's heated response that pushed the moment into the spotlight and made it impossible to ignore. Within minutes, social media platforms were flooded with clips of the split screen. Commentators were dissecting every detail, and headlines framed it as one of the most unforgettable clashes between the two men. The story spread with such speed that even people who hadn't watched the original program soon knew exactly what had happened. Asterisk. The reaction was immediate. Supporters of Trump rushed to defend him, praising his quickness to respond and his refusal to let Obama's account go unanswered. To them, his fiery words were proof that he remained strong, unwilling to back down, even when caught off guard. But critics saw the same footage differently. They argued that Obama's calm delivery made his words resonate more, while Trump's visible anger revealed vulnerability. That divide in perception was telling, and it highlighted just how deeply the moment struck at the heart of America's political conversations. Asterisk. News outlets replayed the clips endlessly, analyzing the situation from every possible angle. On talk shows, panels debated not only the substance of Obama's revelation but also the image it created of both men. Was Trump's anger a sign of strength or weakness? Did Obama's calmness come across as composed or calculated? These questions dominated headlines, drawing in millions of viewers who wanted to watch the footage for themselves and decide what it meant. The replay culture of modern media only magnified the contrast, ensuring that the moment remained fresh long after the live cameras stopped rolling. Asterisk. The public impact wasn't just about entertainment. It raised deeper questions about trust, leadership, and the role of personality in politics. Obama's story implied a gap between what Trump had said privately and what he had presented publicly, and while some dismissed it as just another political jab, others saw it as a reminder of the importance of consistency in leaders. The way Trump reacted made that conversation even louder. By meeting the story with such intensity, he kept the spotlight fixed on it, and every replay of his outburst reinforced the perception that the revelation had hit close to home. Asterisk. Political strategists noted that the timing was significant. In an era where every slip, every unguarded reaction, could go viral, the ability to stay composed under pressure was more important than ever. Obama's calm explanation fit neatly into that framework, while Trump's animated counterattack gave people a very different image to focus on. The two styles clashed in a way that felt symbolic of broader divisions in the country, one side valuing restraint, the other embracing confrontation. That symbolism made the moment bigger than the broadcast itself. It turned into a cultural reference point, a shorthand for how the two men represented entirely different approaches to leadership. Asterisk. The debates stretched across dinner tables, offices, and online forums. Some admired Trump for standing up instantly, refusing to let someone else's narrative define him. Others argued that his anger only validated what Obama had suggested, because it made him appear defensive. The fact that both interpretations could exist at the same time showed how polarizing the exchange had become. It wasn't just about facts, it was about how people interpreted tone, body language, and presence. Asterisk. Even late-night hosts weighed in, replaying clips with commentary that mixed humor and analysis. Some pointed out how unusual it was to see Trump rattled in real time, while others highlighted Obama's ability to maintain composure, no matter how tense the moment grew. Each retelling added new layers to the story, keeping it alive in the public conversation for weeks. Asterisk. For Trump, the episode underscored the double-edged nature of his style. His willingness to fight back instantly had always been part of his appeal, but in this setting, it turned a single revelation into a national spectacle. For Obama, the impact of his words was amplified not just by what he said, but by how he said it. His calmness became the lens through which the entire exchange was judged. Together, their contrasting reactions created an unforgettable image that lingered in the minds of viewers long after the cameras shut off. Asterisk. As the dust settled from the live broadcast, it became clear that the event had created one of those rare moments in modern politics that would be remembered for years. The content of Barack Obama's revelation mattered, but the real significance lay in how the exchange unfolded and how the two men responded when the spotlight was brightest. It wasn't simply about a disagreement over facts, it was about perception, presence, and the way leaders project themselves under pressure. Asterisk 4. Donald Trump. The night highlighted both his greatest strength and his biggest challenge. His ability to react immediately, to insert himself into the narrative with energy and force, has always been central to his political style. He thrives on confrontation, and for many of his supporters, his refusal to stay silent is exactly why they admire him. Yet that same instinct can leave him vulnerable, especially when his emotions are so visibly on display. The sight of him raising his voice, interrupting anchors, and appearing unsettled gave critics ammunition to argue that the revelation had touched a nerve. In politics, moments of visible agitation often linger longer than carefully prepared statements, and this was no exception. Asterisk Obama, by contrast, demonstrated why his calm, deliberate style continues to resonate even after leaving office. He didn't need to raise his voice or push aggressively to make an impact. By speaking plainly, almost as if recounting a memory rather than delivering an attack, he allowed the weight of his words to sink in on their own. That contrast with Trump's fiery response created a powerful dynamic, one man steady, the other agitated. For viewers, that side-by-side image became the story as much as the content of the revelation itself. Asterisk. The impact of the broadcast reached far beyond partisan lines. Supporters of each man saw what they wanted to see, interpreting the clash through their own perspectives. But even those who tried to stay neutral acknowledged that the event laid bare two radically different approaches to leadership. It was a reminder that politics isn't only about policies and platforms, it's also about demeanor, composure, and the ability to shape narratives in the heat of the moment. Asterisk. In many ways, the moment felt like a snapshot of the broader American divide. Trump represented the raw, unfiltered energy of confrontation, while Obama embodied a quieter, more calculated steadiness. Both styles have their admirers and detractors, but when placed side by side on live television, the contrast was impossible. To ignore it sparked debates not just about who was right, but about what kind of leadership people valued more: the fighter who never backs down, or the speaker who remains calm no matter the pressure. Asterisk. As the days turned into weeks, clips of the event continued to circulate, replayed as evidence for whichever side of the debate someone wanted to highlight. But beyond the political arguments, the exchange revealed something deeper about the nature of public life in the digital age. Leaders are not judged only by what they say, but by how they react when caught off guard, when the script disappears, and the true test of composure begins. Asterisk. That night, Obama revealed a story, Trump revealed his reaction, and together, those two moments combined to create a national spectacle, one that reminded the world that in politics, style and substance are inseparable, and the way a leader responds under pressure can be just as telling as